man that really doesn't need an introduction. You know him as Jack Bauer. I get to call him my friend. Mr. Cooper Sutherland. I'll try to be a good moderator, I promise. Yeah, we just kept talking about it. We'll just like sit down and talk like we always do. He looked at me and said, "My God, you've directed so many episodes. How can you be nervous?" I said, "Look, it's 4,000 people in here." Okay, so we'll start. London. What was it like shooting 24 in London?
It was difficult. You know, they've got a lot of rules. The gun thing was a real issue. There would be moments in 24 over the 8 seasons that we did before we shot in London, where if we had an idea, we'd just go, "Oh my God, okay, this is a great opportunity for this or this or this." And literally, we could look at a guy named Sterling, who was a prop guy on our show, and we'd say, "Okay, we need an RPG," and he would just bring it out of his truck. That was not the case in London. We needed 6 weeks to even have a gun on set. We needed 6 weeks.
Locations.
Advance notice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that became kind of difficult. Having said that, there was a fantastic kind of thing that happened out of that where we had to start thinking, okay, well, instead of just killing somebody, how else can we be dramatic about something? And so, kind of like Mother is necessity was mentioned.
Like a window, for example?
Yeah. And so we had to start thinking of different ways to do stuff. And so in the end, it was fantastic. The crew was amazing. That was a very difficult thing. We had shot for 8 years with the same crew. I think 30 some odd children were born, God knows how many marriages had succeeded in the field over the course of that time. But we had become very close. And so it was very odd shooting with a different group of people. And it took us a few months, actually, in all fairness, to kind of get close to each other. And I think we all stood off, in our own way. But it was, London was a fantastic experience. John and I had one kind of pivotal moment where we were shooting on the Thames River, and we were looking down, and John was setting up a long shot down the Thames. And we were thinking of everything from the defeat of the Spanish Armada, 700 years ago to now, or, my gosh, sorry, 300 years ago. But it was amazing walking by a building that was 500 years old, and it kind of looked average.
Yeah. There were a lot of them.
There was a texture in the UK where we got to shoot that was unique and special, and we kept acknowledging it.
And talk about some of the times we were in central London. We'd attract like 200-300 people would be there watching us.
Well, that's another thing. Again, the rules are interesting. In Los Angeles, police officers could basically say, "You can't walk here." In London, they can't. People are very, very clear about their rights, and the sidewalk is mine. It's in the Magna Carta. And they would, we would get, sometimes when we did some of the scenes early on, certainly entering in and exiting from the subway station in Piccadilly, we would get up to 3,000 people watching. Now the thing about that that's kind of amazing is that they actually did listen. So 3,000 people, you say, okay, our camera's aiming in this direction, do you mind moving across the street? And he would watch this giant ant farm.
Or Mary
to the left, and I was like, oh my God, we'd never be able to do that back home. They would never listen. They'd be like,
Pictures made the front page. Excellent.
they in fact did it, and they were really cool.
Well, actually, a barrier. You would just put a barrier up, and you'd say, go behind that barrier, and they did.
Yeah,
Crazy
yeah.
stuff. In
And,
Los Angeles, they would steal a barrier, but they actually went behind it.
and there's an amazing scene actually. Mary Lynn, who plays Chloe. There was a really emotional scene where she first tells me that her husband and son were killed. And we're in a car, and what no one will know is that there were literally 5 feet in front of us, 2,000 people in a park watching us do the scene. And she looked at me and said, I don't know how to do this. And I said, internalize it. And so then she does the scene, and she's fantastic, and she starts to cry. And I said, wow, that came out of nowhere. And she said, no, I started crying because I couldn't believe 2,000 people were just sitting watching me in the car. I didn't know what else to do. So, in many funny ways, it kind of helped us.
See, that's how we get performance on Twitter. So it's season 8, you look up at the satellite, you say you're going off the grid, and 24 hits. And then you get a phone call. Was it your worst nightmare or dream come true when you got that phone call? Or somewhere between.
Well, honestly, I think, and this is a conversation with Howard as well. I think we left it open in season 8 because I think we had every intention of doing the film. And for a variety of reasons, that did not end up happening. This character has been the greatest gift in my career. So when I get a call from Howard, and I think I was doing a play on Broadway at the time, when I get a call saying, I've got this great idea, what do you think about doing it again? There's 5 minutes of poshing, oh my gosh, I could never do that, no, put that to bed, when do we start? But it was I was happy to get the call, and I don't think it took us long, all of us, you, myself, Howard, I think we re-signed up pretty quickly.
But then once...
Oh God, the panic. The panic was extraordinary because I think, if you honestly ask any of us, over the course of the 8 seasons, we'll never say we made a perfect season. Not for a second. But there was enough that we were proud of, that when we put it to bed after the 8 seasons, we were really proud of everything we did. So the idea of opening that up again and potentially damaging that was massive. And so for the 6 months between when we agreed to start shooting season 9 to shooting it, I had managed to turn myself inside out and into a complete mess. So by the time I got to London when John first saw me, I was like, oh. I didn't even know how to talk. And I remember the first 3 days that we were shooting. Does this seem familiar? Is this anything like Jack Bauer? Is this, I was so worried about not kind of serving the character and the story and in all fairness, the franchise, 24, justice. I had done a number of things.
From my end, the very first shot, and it wasn't even planned, it just happened to be that way. If you remember, it was a big action day that first day. And the very first shot that happened to be Kiefer's first shot as the returning Jack Bauer was a shot where the camera goes pushing forward, he's got his gun out. It's a typical Jack Bauer pose, and he goes flying by the camera, and he looks at me, and I go, yeah, we're back. It was just right away I knew that we're on the wrong here. But
it wasn't that fast for me. The next shot was me jumping over a railing and falling 20 feet down to the beach, and it's one of the opening sequences. And I looked at John and I said, I'm a little older, I don't know if I can get over that.
Put another pad. But it's a it's a different Jack Bauer. We saw a slightly different Jack Bauer. He's meaner, leaner, throws people out windows. He just went in there and sort of drove it. I think even in those last scenes when he was shooting those guys in the dock, he just kind of kept shooting them again, even after he shot them the first time. I mean, this was a meaner Jack. I mean, how did that?
Well, that's one of my
was that right in your head?
Well, that's one of my favorite stories, and I'll get to that in a second. But the armor that we did have, and you have to understand, they count the bullets in front of you. They are so specific about, have you ever held a gun before? Yeah. and they really are very specific. But this armor was fantastic, and over the time we kind of got closer. And towards the end of the show, when we really started shooting people, and I would shoot people twice after they were dead. He was like, man, I love that part. That's my favorite thing. You're worse than anybody. But I think one of the things, we were so cognizant of trying to bring this, not necessarily to a close, but certainly evolve from what we've done, and we all have too. I mean, we've gotten older and everything else. And so, the thing that I liked about, I went back and watched the very first season, and most importantly, the very first episode. There was so much hope in this guy. He was in his kitchen with his wife.
He smiled a lot.
Yeah, and the evolution of this guy is now with everything that he's lost and everything else, and he's run out of patience. And so there is a much more aggressive nature to the character in the context of season 9 than anything else, because he's done. He's not fighting for his own life anymore. He's trying to carve out something that he thinks is right for himself and the planet, and maybe trying to protect his family. But there's nothing in his immediate future that he's fighting for, which is a very different tone.
Very different.
And we focused a lot on that.
It also meant keeping the tattoos. It also meant keeping the tattoos. Something we talked about.
Well, and I've lost a lot of patients too, so I was tired of covering them. So I wrote in a diary, and actors do this a lot, where they'll just write a backstory for whatever their character is. Mine was complete bullshit. It was justifying the tattoos on my arms and why I didn't have to cover them. Thanks for your patience with that.
But staying on that, talking about Jack and how much he changed, let's jump to the last episode and sort of what happened there, and when he walked to that helicopter and that little smile at the end, and where did Jack end up? Where did Jack end up in all of this?
I'm sorry.
Where did Jack end up in all of this? Well, by the time we got to episode 12.
Well, I think the fact that he managed to save Chloe in that moment gave him some satisfaction, and that the day had been finished. And I gave him some satisfaction, and thank you for the woo. But one of the things, I mean, we went through so many different ideas for that ending. Even John and I were sitting there, and we thought, well, maybe for the DVD, we'll just have Jack pull out a hand grenade in the helicopter and just blow it up. Takes out the Russian. We'd never had that kind of freedom before, where the end was whatever we can make it. And Howard's going to come up in a minute, and we'll talk about that. It's an unbelievably difficult thing trying to figure out how to do that. And I think on some level, and I was as much a part of it as anybody, I think on some level we kind of copped out because it's hard to let it go. It's hard to end it, and so I think we kind of became ourselves as the people who were making the show. We came kind of full face to that. Now, it was difficult, and we were talking about it last night. We all had dinner last night. There's a wonderful rush that we get. I mean, when I get to sit in a room like this with you all, which, trust me, never happens. There's something amazing. This really did matter to us, and we don't work in a vacuum, and we are cognizant and aware of your response and everything else, is the most energizing thing you can imagine. In fact, it's a high. And I think kind of trying to create the end of our show this season, because we had said this was the last season and this is what we were going to do, was really difficult for us, because I think all of us individually didn't want to really let it go. And we fought against it and we fought for it. And so, and your response to the end, or for this season, was really gracious and kind.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Brought back a few characters and actors that we've worked with before. You had Mary Lynn, of course, Chloe, Kim Raver, Audrey, and a wonderful Bill DeVay, who did incredible work this year. What was it like? What it's like when these people come back? I mean, it's great, I think, from their point of view, because you get these characters that they know. But from our point of view, they're our friends. It's fun to have them back in our lives.
Well, Kim Raver specifically, I mean, this is one of my dearest friends. And Mary Lynn, we work together all the time, and she's kind of got this odd thing going on around her, like there's a halo around her where you can't kill her. You know, we'd rather you die first. So she doesn't kind of come to the set with the same look of fear. You know, but Kim Raver is amazing. Kim Raver is someone who I met on this show. And the very first scene we did was a behind-the-scenes thing that was actually on a DVD, where I push her up against the wall, I undo her blouse, I put my hand around her back, and I kiss her. And
there was a wall involved, too.
And what?
There was a wall involved.
Yes, and I push her up against the wall. And literally, I met her 5 minutes before we did this. And then met her husband. So it's a unique experience, and Kim is so unbelievably professional and such a great actor, and we laughed about this. And literally, I hadn't seen her for 2 years, and she walks on the set, and it picked up exactly like that. The only time where it gets kind of funny is when everybody goes out to dinner, and it's like, oh my God, how are the kids doing and everything else. But when the actors come on our set, and this is a real tribute to John, they're there to work. And everything just seems like it's like that great friend that you had that you haven't seen in 15 years, and then you kind of reconnect, and all of a sudden it was like you were there in 10 minutes 15 years ago. It's like that.
And Bill, working with Bill DeVay.
He's crazy.
He really is.
Bill just wants to be playing polo. He's a great horseman. He's a great polo player. And he was the one guy in England who's like, I can't understand why they don't feed you better. The rest of us were, oh my God, did you see that building? Oh, did you go to Trafalgar Square? Did you know, there were so many things to do. And he was like, I can't sleep. He was the fantastic, miserable traveler.
And the TV, like, there's only 15 channels. I can't watch anything.
That's right.
But he was just incredible this year. The other thing, I've got to just give you a little heads up. When you get the Blu-ray, which all of you are going to get, when you rewatch this show, watch his wardrobe. Watch when his tie is undone. Watch, when he's got his jacket off, his shirt sleeves up. That is all Bill. And he had a very specific reason why he was doing all of it. When the shirt sleeves are up, when he's talking to the thing, and he puts the jacket back on. But watch it. If you track it, it's actually really fun to watch. His wardrobe, the shirt, the tie, all of that was him. He was really, really conscious about that. That's what actors do. They bring that to it. So, in speaking of that, talk about your process, Keeper. So you get the script. Do you look at it? Do you start sort of memorizing it a week before or the night before? Like, what's the process once you've got sort of the words on the page?
Okay, so he's cheating here. He's asking us questions. It's a billion, and it's so unfair. It depends when we get the script. When we start, we usually usually have 4 scripts, so you can prepare as much as you want to for those 4 leading up. Certainly, and during 12 episodes and 24 episodes didn't seem to matter. As it gets towards the end, you get the scripts later, and you start learning stuff the night before. You know, and it is what it is, because that's when you get it.
And sometimes that's a daunting task. You've got 6, 7 pages to learn. It's a lot.
Well, and certainly if you're shooting episodes 9 and 10, and they're going well, you're panicked to read 11 and 12. So you put that off as long as possible, which is kind of my problem. But you figure it out. The nice thing about, and it was funny because this is a thing that I've had to talk to other actors about. We were trained, and certainly when I started working in the early 80s, television that was the end of your career. If you were doing television, that was the last stop Texaco, and the next thing else was commercials, and then you were dead. You were doing Chekhov in Poughkeepsie. And the fear of television was playing a character over a long period of time. But 24 was part of it, but I think in ER, there were some other fantastic shows certainly before us. Sopranos was a perfect example, where if you take a look at Tony Soprano's character from the very beginning of that show to what it evolved to at the end of that show, the character was vastly different. And I think Jack Bauer was the same, and so I tried to explain to other actors, no, you got to try this is amazing. You get to develop a character over X number of years, and the character doesn't stay the same. The character changes. And if you look at Jack Bauer from the very first episode to the very last episode, they're very 2 different men. It's actually one of the greatest, one of the most rewarding acting opportunities that you can imagine. And so my experience in television was extraordinary for that. And I have to tell you, as you know, I'm a huge movie fan. And I go to less and less films. When I take a look at a show like Ray Donovan, which I think is unbelievable, or Boardwalk Empire, or Game of Thrones. There's just so much great stuff out there. It was just an honor to be able to have been a part of kind of that transition.
You made it!
So now you're on set. So now you've memorized it, you're ready to go, and we get on set. And 24, again, I think is a little different than most shows. I do a lot of other shows. Especially, I think the writers gave us probably more freedom than they would most shows. We get on set, we work it out, we read it, we sort of block it out. Blocking is when you just sort of, for those that don't know, you decide where all the characters are going to stand, where the cameras are going to be. But then we make adjustments. For example, one that I know that people would love to hear about is, how did you end up throwing the Red Queen from Game of Thrones out the window? That wasn't the original concept. There was a slightly different concept, and it's something that we talked about, and you find something else. And the writers were always great. Howard and the guys were great to letting us sort of, play that way.
But in the end, it was my ego. I was an unbelievable actor. And as it was written, I come through the window and shoot her and kill her. And I looked at John, I went, I don't get to have a scene with her, I don't get to talk to her, I don't get to do anything. And he went, no. And as it stands, the episode's too long. So there's all these variable
Other factors.
I went, no, that's not possible. I have to have a scene with her. She's fantastic. I at least want to be able to say I've worked with her. So it was my ego. So we did a few lines. She's the strongest, shortest person you've ever met.
She's wiry.
I remember trying to wrestle her on the ground. I said, we can act this. She said, no. I'm going to do it. And so I never actually got to have a scene with her because I spent the entire time just trying to hold her still. She was unbelievably strong. So by the time I actually chucked her out the window, I was quite happy.
You like that?
He was also a character that was the great nemesis for 8 episodes.
Yeah, Michelle.
And to just simply shoot someone, I just didn't think was kind of that. So we said, you know, would you mind if we threw out the window? He said, oh no, that'd be great. Yeah. and in all fairness, it's like we added 3 lines.
Yeah.
So it's not really that much of a change. One of the reasons why the scene works so well, and I really do have to pay respect to this, in the UK, we had a stunt crew that was really
great.
The best that I've ever seen. These guys were extraordinary. And I think the reason why it works is because the woman who actually did the jump out the window,
Handcuffed.
land,
Backward.
handcuffed,
Behind her back.
and her back. They did that so well, and it was such a kind of violent that was really the payoff.
And there was another one too. There was the one with Ben Bratt where he puts his hand on the table. That was another one. And he says, "What's on the table here?" Explain that one too, the way that one worked.
Well, again, it's you know,
It's in the moment.
our writers write fantastic scripts, but every once in a while, someone will present you with an opportunity. He put his hand on the table, and I went, okay. Well. The scene becomes about kind of trying to break his hand. And that's been kind of the case over the 8 years. I think when we started, there was one interrogation scene which ended up becoming a torture scene. Which is how we got into this. And again, it's from a dramatic point of view. The opportunity presented itself. The actor that we had in that very first season was on fire. He was great. And he was spitting at me, and he was doing all this other stuff, and it just escalated. And so this scene just kind of grew, and it happened right there. It was very organic. And then every time I'd say, well, let me pull him over here and burn him. And the other actor was like, yeah, do that. And so it just kind of, it escalated and it grew. And that's the best way that I can explain my experience on 24 was people came to work and they were excited and they wanted to do something different or bold and it kind of shaped how we made the show.
And they gave us the freedom to do it. And I think they gave us the freedom to do it. And I think that's a big part of it, because a lot of it is born on that day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to see, words on a page, but like you say, when you start getting in there and it starts getting physical and you're flipping tables, it all becomes very different.
Well, and it's one of the great things, and I think one of the reasons, I liken our show to a band, and most rock and roll bands break up, and some stay together for whatever reasons. We stayed together because everybody respected what everybody did. The writers were on the 2nd floor, and we were on what we called the floor, and that's where we shot. We didn't go up there, and we didn't go up there and tell them what to write, and they didn't come down and tell us how to shoot. The writers wrote, the directors directed, the actors acted. Everybody did their jobs, and I think there was a great mutual respect across the board for everybody involved that allowed us to stay together. And I know Howard's up there somewhere and representing the writers. No, that freedom was extraordinary, and the faith that we had in each other was really important as well.
One of the secrets, I think. So 13 years, Jack Bauer. How much of Jack is in Kiefer and vice versa?
Oh, very different.
A little? A couple of things?
Just take a look at my record.
Record
Vastly different. Which is interesting because as a person, I get to look at the character and I can stand back from that character, and it is a very different guy for me. And I promise you, when I grow up, that's the guy I would like to be. But it's very different. But I think the one thing that I respect about him, that I hope that I do have, is that I have a very strong sense of right and wrong. It doesn't mean I necessarily follow it or but I know it. And I think the one beautiful thing about Jack Bauer is that he has a very strong sense of right and wrong as well, and he lives by it. And that's the thing I've respected about the character more than anything. And that was the great fear of opening it up to do a season 9, all of those things. I have a great respect for that character, and it makes the decisions that I have to make as an actor very simple, because that moral compass of his is his code of life. And so everything becomes very simple for me in that context.
What about people looking at you sometimes and sort of thinking you as Jack Bauer? I know you told me a story, and it's just a great story about running out of gas and someone poking their head out the window.
This was so embarrassing. In the first season, I had gone to the wrong location. I had gone to our set. I had gotten the maps confused. And we had a company movie. And I went to the wrong location first. And then to make matters worse, on the way to the second location, now already late. And I'm never late. I've never missed a day's work, and I've never really been late except for this one time. And in all fairness, I arrived at the first location.
On time.
But to make matters worse, I ran out of gas literally half a mile down the road. And we had been shooting in this area. It was the first season. We'd been shooting in this area for about 4 months. And I'm still wearing a suit from Jay Leno the night